Hey guys, welcome to FPV World, and we've got Dimitri.
I'm Dmitry from the Umbrella FPV. I'm flying a couple years. You can see my videos on the different social medias.
And Jazz.
I go by Jazzman on YouTube and Insta. I've been flying for about 5 years now and love my freestyle and chase footage.
Yeah, it's good. Today we're going to just talk about a few things about live streaming. So live streaming these days is a big thing. So we've got a few bits and pieces here and we want to just discuss it. What quads do you fly, Jazz?
Mostly freestyle, although I also fly me little Cinewhoop here.
And that's used for?
This thing's perfect for soft targets and going around things that are going to be a little bit more breakable if you're flying a nice big 5-inch around.
I was going to say you also got a naked GoPro there as well.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
That's the thing to use on these, nice and light. That'll break if you crash it. So this thing's only for those mission critical spots where you're not meant to be crashing it.
Yep. And what do you do for freestyle? Something small?
Freestyle, normally I'll be using a bigger quad, or if I'm going to the park, I'll just use something like this. This is a little 2.5-inch from iFlight, and this one's got an air unit in it, which is great for just your recording your weekend flights and stuff like that. Yep.
What do you use?
For the small spots, I'm using the Betafly 75. For the small events, or like family events, or you have house in the country, you have party there, you can live stream.
So that's similar to what Jazz was saying, but that's actually smaller than what Jazz's one is. And what camera you got on top of that?
On the top of this, I can put Insta360, which is worse quality than on the GoPro you can have.
Well, it's not as good as GoPro, but you can still get a HD basically image out of it, right?
Of course, up to 2.7K.
And then what do you use for like small freestyle?
For freestyle, I have a 3-inch, which is on my back. This one 3.5, completely custom built, and again you can live stream from this drone as well. Live streaming happened basically from the goggles. Depends on the video system you put on the drones. After that, all the video feed go into the goggles, and from the goggles you live stream it.
Before you mention that, I was going to say all of these quads use a DJI A unit or a Caddx Vista. They're both digital systems, right?
Yep.
And they basically use exactly the same thing. So everything's digital, and either Vista or DJI A unit, right? So they exactly have the same system. Now, what we have on top, like the GoPros or the Insta360 Go, they are used as an additional cameras. So normally we would stream from a DJI A unit, right?
DJI unit or Vista 720p, the resolution. When we're talking about Walksnail, it's come up with the great alternatives that you live stream 1080p. It means that you can put VTX on the small drones like Jared has on his 65. You can stream even from those small drones 1080p.
So, in your opinion, you've done obviously a fair bit of streaming. Would you recommend 720p, 1080p, or 4K? What would you recommend to streaming?
It depends on the HDMI mixer awareness from different drones, HDMI signal coming in, and after that uploading to the different social medias. If the requirement is 720p, then it is obviously DJI V2 goggles more than enough. If the requirement is 1080p, you have to jump to the Walksnail or DJI providing 1080p from the new goggles 2.
Okay, so we've got all the quads here and they all use exactly the same digital system. Jazz, from your experience, what do you think everyone potentially use for live streaming? So do you think, like we've got a couple of different options here. Talk to me about like what's the best way of live streaming? Is it 720p, 1080p, 4K? And just tell me what you've done in the past. Yeah,
so the only thing we've done in the past is to use air units and Vistas, because that's all that I've run up to now. The O3's fairly new, but I think we'll support up to 1080p.
Yeah, okay.
The old Vistas and air units only support 720p out from the goggles.
720p is still pretty good though, right? It's still a HD signal.
Yeah, it depends where you are. I mean, if you're sitting right in front of the TV in the lounge room, you might be able to see a bit more of that. But for a live streaming situation, oftentimes it's being sent over the internet, so it's compressed.
Yeah.
or it's on a big screen outside, and that's not going to have the highest quality itself. So for that sort of stuff, 720 should be fine.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And from your experience, I mean, you know, a lot of the pilots that are out at the moment, they use the DJI goggles, right? What do you think about that? Like, do you feel like V1, V2s? Which goggles do you think is really better?
Look, it's always changing. When the V1s came out, obviously they were the best ones to have. But I think that the goggles 2 have a bit of an edge for me because they're a lower latency goggle. The goggles V2 are a lower latency. The goggles 2 are slightly higher resolution. So I believe that they're the only ones that are going to be capable of that 1080p if you need that.
So at this stage, when we're recording this video, 720p we probably recommend because it's easy to use online for YouTube, for Instagram, for Facebook, and whatever else. And that basically you'll be able to get that out of the V1, V2 goggles, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so V2 goggles obviously we recommend, but you know you can still obviously work with it both ways. Dimitri, you've done a fair bit of streaming as well. Can you walk us through with the system that you've got? So you've got the V2 goggles. So with these goggles there, we've got the analog receiver, but the goggles obviously can be plugged into a USB-C to HDMI. And then tell us how that works.
Basically what we start from the beginning, we're connecting these goggles. It is USB-C, which should be connected to the smart controller. Which is pretty expensive. It is around $1,000 even now. Give you ability for the normal HDMI out to the HDMI transmitter. The benefits of the Walksnail system is that it is not required any smart controller. The port which you can find underneath of the goggles, this one you can connect directly to any HDMI input, and it will be 1080p. What we're usually doing, we are connecting this to the HDMI transmitter, which is going to the HDMI mixer, and in this case we have multiple benefits. First, we're transmitting higher quality, 1080p versus 720p, and we don't need additional equipment. We're saving on the equipment.
So saying that though, when you're transmitting online for obviously for clients or wherever else, you need a very good internet connection for 1080p though, right? 720p you might be able to get away with your phone, right? But with 1080p you will need a steady, fast internet connection.
Correct. It depends on the reception on the field. We obviously go into the field and do some research before we're doing some gigs like that. And it depends on the scale of the filming. If it's like 20-30 people involved there who's operating with the camera, obviously they have a redundancy on their internet, even sometimes satellite internet and so on. However, on some scenarios when it's 2-3 people and they just need something, I just said, and it is completely correct, better to use 720p from the DJI goggles.
So walking through it, so when you connect everything up and you connect your goggles to the controller, what do you actually do on the controller itself?
Basically we're connecting cable to the USB-C goggles. Another end we are connecting to the smart controller. Connecting quad. Running the application on the smart controller called FPV Live. We have image on the smart controller. When you can double check how the pilot flying, and also we're doing HDMI feed to the TV.
So we can also mention that we can get a HDMI signal out of the actual smart controller, so we don't actually have to use the extra TV or the extra screen. We can directly pump the message out to the wireless, and then wireless will go through to the other port, and that will basically stream through.
Yeah. Right? What we're going to reproduce this live stream now. We're going to connect this transmitter instead of the monitor, and after that on this TV we have receiver which will grab the signal and put on TV. Now we're transmitting to the TV, which can be far from us, more than 100-200 meters.
So that signal can be taken from obviously the smart controller, plug directly into your live streaming team or person, whoever is live streaming, and then they can go and basically use that signal to live stream. So that's 720p.
Yep, that's how we're doing.
Okay, so the next step would be Dimitri does have actually a Walksnail system, and Walksnail does give you an option of transmitting at 1080p. So do you want to walk us through how the Walksnail system works?
The difference between DJI V2 system and Walksnail that we can utilize 1080p, and we don't need to spend additional money for the smart controller. For the budget live streaming, it is, I believe, important.
So you can plug it directly into the actual screen or directly into the actual HDMI feed.
Here I'm using simple USB-C to the HDMI adapter. You can buy it on the AliExpress for the couple bucks, and after that a normal HDMI cable. I'm connecting directly to the TV.
Yeah. That's obviously saving of money from a smart controller point of view and directly out into the actual screen. So if you actually want someone, like if you're flying with you guys and you want them watching you flying, you can directly connect it to a 7-inch screen and plug it into your battery, and then you'll be able to see what you see in the goggles.
Yeah, sure.
We will have the image on the goggles, and from the goggles feed should appear on the screen in a minute. As you see the image now on the screen, we can actually enjoy the 1080p picture on the big TV now. We're going to utilize the HDMI receiver for this. Just quickly connect, and we will reconnect the feed on the TV.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the HDMI signal connected to the TV, and we've got directly out into the TV, like I said, monitor as well. At the moment we do have obviously all the data there that the drone is transmitting, but it will be, you can turn that off. The next thing is I want to sort of talk about would be the new system, the Goggles 2,
the
03. Yeah. So that's exactly the same. What we had is as well, you do need a smart controller for that as well, but you need the Smart Controller Pro. Is that correct?
Yes, you need new smart controller for this.
Yeah, so you need this new smart controller for that, and that works exactly the same way as the normal V2. Directly into the smart controller, you fire up the app and then transmit it through the same way.
So one thing I notice is that the Walksnail system seems just a little bit less latency when compared to the DJI. It's still not a flyable latency. You couldn't use the monitor in this case for flying. You'd have to use the goggles, but it's still a lot faster than the DJI setup.
Few videos on my YouTube when I was trying to fly not from the goggles, trying to use HDMI monitor, and actually it is flyable even for the freestyle. HDMI monitor not adding much latency on the top for the simple freestyle.
Yeah, so the latency is much better on the Walksnail rather than the DJI system at this stage.
From the V2 goggles, you have to put video to the smart controller, after the smart controller adding additional latency, and after that you're feeding the monitor.
So we're still practicing and going with the 2 goggles, and that will basically be available. Hopefully we can do another video on just on that. But the latency we're not sure as well, but you do need a smart controller, and it works exactly the same way.
Yeah, with this guy, what we've got set up, we're running a GoPro with a media mod.
Yep.
Now this has to go on only, this is a bit of a setup for a bigger drone. So the idea here is that we're running the GoPro straight out a HDMI cable into the HDMI transmitter. So this essentially is transmitting GoPro footage from the drone back to us down on the ground.
Yep. The range on that?
So we're probably going to get around about 200 meters out of the system as it is.
Okay.
It's obviously the transmitters work pretty good when they're out by themselves, but when you've got them up close against the carbon and around the other drone transmitting antennas and stuff, well, yeah, the range can get impacted a bit. The setup that we got on the table here at the moment with all the batteries and stuff is made a little bit lighter by running special cables from the drone battery to the transmitter and to the GoPro, so they both lose their batteries, which saves us a bit of weight.
Yeah, we should probably mention as well that this is a 7-inch quad as well. So the 7-inch quad can carry a lot more payload, right? And then give us actually a lot more flight time.
Yep, another drone what we already built is a completely custom built one with the Mark IV frame. This one 100-150 grams lighter than the Chimera. And we believe this drone will be with a bit better performance on the live streaming. when we're using GoPro with the media mode.
So you definitely recommend like a 7-inch for obviously heavier load as well, right?
Yes.
What I also wanted to mention, a lot of people have the DJI FPV, and they are quite good for live streaming as well. You do get a bit of props in the view, right? Once you sort of, you know, which is kind of okay because it gives that sort of extra, I guess, view, and you know, but you do need to have your DJI smart controller to be able to send the signal out to, and obviously control it as well. And you also have the new DJI Avata.
Yeah, I have a new DJI Avata, but unfortunately I have to spend additional $1,500 for the Smart Controller Pro.
The RC Pro.
Yes,
yeah.
to the RC Pro to have a live feed from this drone. As you know, this drone has multiple benefits as well as downsides, but depends on how we're using this drone. And I think live stream from this drone will be perfect because it has inbuilt stabilization of the camera as well there.
So it's quite good.
Thank you for the watching our videos for the all 3 our channels and also our social media. Put your comments below this video which maybe other topics you would like us to cover in the future, and we will be more than happy to do so.
Yep. So we'll try to keep doing these videos and see how it goes. If you do have your comments, hit us up. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.